Hey everyone, welcome back to Solo Party. My name is Kane, and we are back with our Chronicles of Drunagor Awakenings campaign. Let's go ahead and check out what we did during the camp phase. We gained 4 new pieces of equipment, and everybody gained a new class skill. First, we gained the Astral Symbol. This is a relic, and it has mass healing. It has split for a heal 5, meaning we can target multiple targets. We can split it however we want. And each character that receives 5 or more healing points this way also gains Cleanse 1. So if we focus that whole heal onto one of our allies, or ourselves I guess, then we will also gain the benefits of the Cleanse. And we of course have that equipped to Katharina. Next we also gained the Accuracy Ring Trinket. And so this just gives a passive +1 to hit for weapon attacks. And we equipped that to Vakram, and you'll see why in just a moment. We also picked up the Cleave Scythe, which we are equipping to Nyx. This is a heavy weapon, and you need an 8 or higher to hit. It does 4 base damage, but whenever you roll a 16 plus, you may take a Curse Cube to give the attack a +2 damage bonus. And last thing we picked up is Hack and Slash for Vakram. But I'm not even going to read this off because during camp phase, we went ahead and discarded our Artisan's Tools and Christie's Kitten in order to upgrade the Hack and Slash to the improved Hack and Slash. And now this is versatile. The Grave Scythe was as well, meaning you can choose which side you want to start on, but we're going to choose the side that is harder to hit but does a lot more damage. And so that's why we put the Accuracy Ring also onto Vakram. And so this says Heavy Wield. Also, whenever you deliver the killing blow, you may take a Curse Cube to target another target enemy within range 1 and deal 3 damage. And all Heavy Wield really means is that we can only make a single weapon attack from each weapon attack action that we take or receive. So if, say, Andreas had a Warden ability that granted us 2 attacks in a single action, we would not be able to take both of those. We can only make 1 attack per action. And now let's check out the class abilities we got with each character. Andreas took the Intervention tree, so we have the level 1 Comforting Word. Our heals gain a +1 bonus. Katharina took the Arcane tree, and for level 1 we have Researcher. You can use cubes of any color to activate wisdom skills. Nyx took the Trickery tree, which gave her Flank. Her weapon attacks get +2 to hit against enemies who are adjacent to another ally. And Vakram went ahead and took Blade Master to give us level 1 precision. Weapon attacks get +1 to hit, knowing we took that 11 plus improved Hack and Slash. So really now with our Accuracy Ring, it's only going to be a 9 or higher to hit for 7 damage, which is really good. And now we can head to the interlude, The Good Old Days. You wake up covered in sweat in the middle of the night from a dream where you were sparring with Minerva, just like the good old days. Minerva would follow every blow with a quick lecture. Faster, stand your ground, take the upper hand. Few words made for quick lessons, easier to remember. In your dream, however, Minerva was stronger, but she screamed with every hit like she was suffering. Feeling nauseated, you climb to the deck, hoping the night wind will help you clear your head. The cold breeze against your sweaty skin sends a relaxing chill along your arms as soon as you step on deck. One deep breath later, you hear steps behind you. In the flickering light of the lamps, you see a tall man approach you sternly, with a shabby but ornate jacket. He has a distinctive brown hat with golden filigree, which makes it resemble a sort of a crown. "So, you are the one my crew has been talking about," he says. His voice sounds deep but tired. You introduce yourself to the man. "It's an honor to make your acquaintance, my friend. I have the privilege and the burden of being Captain Vincent of Everedge, in command of the Pristine Swan, the exquisite vessel you now find yourself on." The captain follows with a quick bow. He raises his hand so you extend yours, thinking he will shake it. To your surprise, there is a bottle of rum there, from which he takes a long sip. "Sorry. Long day, even longer night." The captain's eyes meet your extended hand, and he passes you the bottle. "Oh, I imagine your night has also been terrible. How are you feeling?" You take the bottle, but you realize you don't know how to answer his question. Every moment since you went to your room in Aradrin's best has been absolute chaos. You drink the rum, and almost instantly you feel the alcohol warming your chest, lightening your thoughts. The next minute, you tell him everything that happened, how you intended to take time off from selling your sword, the monsters you've never seen before, the flooding of Aradrin's streets. You remember the slaughter, the screams, the fire, the odd man from the doctrine who reopened the wound of your unanswered questions about your missing master, not to mention the giant tree-like creature. You suddenly pause at the mention of it, feeling an itch at the back of your head. What was so curious about that creature? You realize your hand is trembling, so you drink more. Captain Vincent, who had been listening to you in silence, gently takes the bottle from your hand and rests against the gunwale, gazing at the starry sky. I had never seen those creatures either, and I've been traveling these islands for many years now, he says slowly, as if he were hearing each word for the first time. I have also conferred with the odd clergyman you mentioned and heard his request. Honestly, I can't tell which worries me more. The captain drinks the rest of the bottle in one gulp. I can see that you believe this is not the reason why you came here, but I recognize one who looks for answers. I hope that if you find any, they bring you peace. Make your choices carefully. As a wise warrior once told me, live with no regrets, he concludes, throwing the bottle into the ocean and walking back to his quarters. Just like that, with a simple sentence that anyone could have said, you feel that wound inside of you reopen irreparably. You walk back to your hammock, feeling numb from the rum, planning to find your answers. The next morning, you decide to climb on deck in order to occupy your mind. In the thick, cold mist of the morning, you can't see much, though. A few crewmen work in a melancholic way, singing sad songs to the sound of the water crashing against the ship's hull. Could Minerva have sailed with them? Was she the one who said those words to Captain Vincent? And if so, what would that mean to you? Should you go seek her whereabouts? Deep in your thoughts, you fail to notice one of the crewmen approaching you from behind. Hey, traveler. You've been summoned to the captain's cabin, he says. When you ask the man why, he simply shrugs. The captain doesn't need to share his reasons with us, he answers, leaving you and going back to his chores. You are curious, and there is not much else to do, so you walk to the cabin and knock on the door. Come in. You step inside the cabin and close the door behind you. The warmth provided by the numerous lamps is suffocating after being exposed to the cold air of the morning outside. Take a seat, if you will, the captain says from behind a large wooden table. He is alone with dozens of books, and his eyes tell you that the man didn't sleep at all. Refusing the invitation with a wave of your hand, you take a look around the cabin. The place is piled with books, weapons, and artifacts. Many of them really look like lordly possessions. I don't have a drink to offer you today, as it seems someone drank all my rum during the night, he says with a tired smile. But also because this is not a social occasion. As I told you yesterday, I spent the night thinking about a problem. I received a request from my old acquaintance, Amos, the clergyman you met in Aradrin. Thankfully, he survived the attack and is here on the doctrine's orders. Vincent stops for a moment and looks at you to make sure you are following. The news he brought me is sad, and his request seems grave. The doctrine wants me to assist Amos in gathering 3 relics located here in the Free Islands and deliver them to the ruins of a temple on one of those islands. It seems, somehow, that the attack on Aradrin is connected to this. The captain pauses again, takes a quill, and scribbles something in what seems to be a journal. Looking back at you, he seems to remember what he was talking about. My business with you is that although I have the best ship and crew in the Free Islands, I have no seasoned adventurers in my ranks, and I can't spare my fighters. And you, my friend, from what I've heard, did pretty well against that giant creature in Aradrin. Vincent clears his throat. What I mean by all that praise is to convince you to come with me on this quest. Here, the captain's expression turns grave. If what Amos told me is true, the free folk are in great danger. Will you help us once more? You take the captain's word with a gulp. Images of the attack are still clear in your memory. They remind you of when you were a defenseless child before Minerva rescued you and gave you a family. Taken by these emotions, you accept Vincent's request before you even realize what you've done. Okay, our party does not have the promised reward, so we are going to ignore that and proceed to Chapter 4, Battle on the High Sea. So this section at the top here is just instructing us to follow along with the story before we start to read the special mechanics for this chapter. So let's start with this narrative portion. Chapter 4, Battle on the High Sea. Opening your eyes after a quick restless nap, you decide to climb on deck to occupy your mind. In the thick cold mist of the morning, you can't see much though. A few crewmen work in a melancholic way, singing sad music in time to the sound of the water crashing against the ship's hull. I thought I recognized it. This is almost the exact same text from the interlude, yeah? So I'm not going to bother with that. That seems like a very odd decision to me. But we will go to page 72 to, it looks like we have an interaction on O Captain, My Captain. Captain Vincent King, the savior of the people of Aradrin, and a man who strangely reminds you of Minerva, has recruited you for the job of collecting 3 relics and delivering them to a temple in the Free Islands. Right after you close the deal, you hear the voice of the quartermaster announcing the approach of a suspicious vessel. Eager to see who the visitor is, the captain asks you if there are any pressing matters before you both leave the cabin to meet your unexpected guests. And let's see, we just got a bunch of equipment. I don't think we need to necessarily ask for payment up front. I don't feel like we're the type to pry into the notes or to steal the map. So obviously asking about Minerva seems very on brand for something we might do. Amos we're kind of interested in. I'm kind of interested in asking about the relics, what they're wanting us to gather here. But yeah, I think narratively we want to ask about Minerva. If your party has the dark past status noted on the story record, which we don't, so we get to read this passage. Unable to get King's words out of your mind, you ask if he knew Minerva, your master, whether he sailed with her. King looks into your eyes in silence, and a sad smile comes to his lips. I thought your ways reminded me of her, he says, finally seeming more tired than before. I've sailed with her, yes. I'm certain the commission you say she accepted was the same one. We sailed for the Church of the Setting Sun a year ago. You feel your chest tighten. She was the greatest companion I ever had, and she was always worried about her apprentice. Ha ha, says the captain, laughing with sadness in his face. It is good to see that you are alive and well. We will have time to talk about her soon, over a bottle of rum, I hope. And now we will write down the acquainted status in our story record. And then we get to choose another resolution and proceed to that. And alright, if we're still going to get to choose one more, let's go ahead and also ask about the relics. If your party has the selfless outcome, and I don't believe we do, so we will read the following. Curious about the relics the captain mentioned. You ask about them and what the church needs them for. I don't care what the scholars say. Heed my words. This is an old world which our knowledge can't even grasp. There are countless relics on these islands, and you could spend a lifetime searching for all of them. I like to spend my free time searching for them. Some are harmless and can fetch a good price. My master taught me that, King says, pointing to a portrait on the wall. Admiral Lucanor. He made his life that way. Before sailing into the deep sea, he left me a parting gift. A map to a relic inside a sunken temple. It's yours if you want it. We free folk never flirt with the cold below. First, each hero gains focus 2, and then we're going to write down the sunken relic status on the story record. And then we finally read cutscene, man your battle stations. As you leave the cabin, the captain is already halfway to the helm, shouting orders to the crew. All hands, man your battle stations. We're going to pass right by 'em. Sink 'em or sweep 'em, I don't care, but do it fast. He smiles sardonically to you. It's those creatures again. As you look to the front of the ship, you see a dark vessel approaching like a shadow. The water around her is dark, as if the presence of this strange ship alone was enough to blacken it. You watch as the vessel approaches, and you see a commotion among the creatures on deck. You wonder what is going on, but as you look, your eyes capture movement in the water around the ship. You see a number of monsters swimming stealthily towards the Pristine Swan. They're in the water. You hear a harsh shout accompanied by a dwarf climbing on deck, followed by the sly figure of an elf. I'll stab them before they even know what hit them. It's time to fight again. And now we're going to look at the special preparations to ready the crew and the ships for the upcoming fight. Special preparation, brothers in arms. Crewed with the finest of Darren, the Pristine Swan has many adventurers ready to defend her. Although these seasoned men are helpful in a fight, some of them might not be so excited to be at your side in this battle. So we're going to recruit Vorm back. He is going to be in our party, and we do have Drinking Pal, so he is going to be on the field side. Then we also get Elros the Assassin into our party, and we do not have the threats or treats outcome, so he is on his spiritless side. And we'll check out his card for the first time here. You can see he needs 5 damage in one go to be defeated. He can move 3, he does 1 damage, but he puts poison 2 on the targets, which is pretty strong. And now we have our special preparation naval battle. A naval battle is about to start, and now you have to make some special preparations to track each ship's health. First, we take the Pristine Swan's HP Special Mechanic deck, shuffle it, and place it next to the board. Whenever the Pristine Swan takes damage from enemy cannons, draw the top card from this deck and resolve its effects immediately. Then we will go ahead and do the same thing for the Corrupted Vessel HP deck. And finally, we will take the Fel Asteris miniatures and put them next to the board and place the Foul Shooter Scenario Monster card on the initiative track, and we will not be able to use the normal Fel Asteris as a random monster. So our Foul Shooter here moves for 3. This monster moves towards the nearest Dread Cannon and fires it. Okay. And we can see it's got 4 plus our party size, which is 4, so it has 8 health. And the next few pages are full of instructions and clarifications for how to engage in all of the extra mechanics that are going to come with the sea battle, and I will explain those to the best of my ability when they come up. Now, I know this is a long setup, but we are almost there. We are at the special rules for this section. For our darkness spawning rule, we have the naval battle. This campaign chronicles the unfolding of the darkness awakening in Darren, yada yada, everything we've seen before. Thus, its minions even dare to attack the survivors on the high seas. In order to control the flow of the upcoming battle, place the naval battle rune card with face A up at the end of the initiative track. Whenever the initiative marker reaches it, you must advance both vessels, draw the indicated number of runes, one at a time, and then execute their respective effects. Place the drawn runes on the initiative track and then flip the rune card over. And then again, it tells you where you can find the clarifications. Now, it technically says naval battle, but I'm going to assume it means this naval raid here. So first on, that's side B. So on side A, we are first going to manifest a rune. Then we will summon a raid party of Tide Hunters adjacent to the Pristine Swan's cannon, matching the color of the revealed rune. Then we'll flip it over, and on the B side, we're going to manifest and then summon a raid party of boatswains on the matching spawning points on the corrupted vessel. All right, so back and forth between the Tide Hunters on our ship and the boatswains on the enemy ship. There will be no darkness mechanics, and the recall action curse penalty is still a single curse cube. For special preparation, we still have Stirring Darkness, so we are going to take 5 runes of each color from the bag and place them on the initiative track. During this adventure, there are creatures everywhere, and they might attack at any time. Take the Nagian Hunter and the Executioner miniatures, the Tide Hunter and the Boatswain minion cards, and we're not able to use the Nagian Hunter or the Executioner as random monsters, and place the Naval Raid, it says it there, the Naval Raid scenario card above the top end of the initiative track with face A up. And so we have our Tide Hunter and our Boatswain. See, we have 6 HP here, 9 HP there, and just some kind of reduced stats for what they normally do, but no immunities, which is really nice. We also have instructions for how to board the ships. So when the vessels have joined side by side in a sea battle, there is no way to escape a direct boarding. Crossing such a chasm of raging waters can be hard, so characters who cannot cross the placeholder space using their normal movement may take the special action rope swing to go from one ship to the other. For heroes, taking this action counts as a cube action, and they must expend 1 action cube. For followers, monsters, and pets, this counts as an attack action. To board the other ship, the swinging character must be adjacent to the map tile, the placeholder space you'll see when we go to the board, and must end their swing on an unoccupied space on the opposing vessel that is also adjacent to this map tile. And remember, diagonal is adjacent, and if they cannot fulfill these requirements, the action cannot be taken. So we have another special rule, hindered sight. In the early hours of the morning, a dense fog covers the sea and hinders the hero's sight. Consider the range of all agility skills, wisdom skills, focus abilities that are on weapon attacks, and consumable items reduced to 1 area away, so a maximum of 1 blue square. The same applies to multicolored skills activated with agility cubes or wisdom cubes. So we're not going to be able to have full range of activating our abilities. So if we have some allies over on the corrupted vessel and we want to use a wisdom cube from our ship, we're not going to be able to do so because we're going to be too far away while this dense fog is covering the area. And so, to win and lose the adventure, we still can be defeated if we receive the Curse Cube limit or Trauma Cube limit. We also lose if we draw the last Pristine Swan's HP card or the last rune in the bag is drawn. And we know because of the setup, there should be, I think, 11 runes. So I think we have about 11 turns to take out the corrupted vessel. And the in-game trigger is when the last corrupted vessel's HP card is drawn, the enemy vessel is destroyed. We will read End of the Adventure, a day for the prey. And now we can begin. Let's check out the board. So we'll go ahead and look at the initiative track and kind of see where everything's at and when different monsters will be activated. We went ahead and put our Tide Hunter, Boatswain, and Foul Shooters down, but there are none currently spawned, but that is where they will be activating whenever they are spawned onto the board. You can see for our other monsters, we have a Gorgoness Witch and Walking Horrors for our white monsters. We have the Shadow Vampire for our gray monsters, and we have both the Shadow Knight and Abomination for our black monsters. Okay, so Vakram is starting us off, and we're going to use our free 3 movement to place ourselves by this chest. Then we're going to spend our range cube on our Bravado skill to make a weapon attack at range against the Abomination. We're going to get +3 to hit, plus another 2 from our accuracy ring and our precision from Blade Master. So it's going to be a total of plus 5 on our 11. So we need to roll a 6 or higher to hit the abomination for 7. And a 19 hits. So that is going to be 7 damage to the abomination, and it will also gain Intimidate 2. Next, we'll go ahead and use our minor action to search the chest. So we'll roll the trap die. And we got nothing. Incredible. And Vakram pulled a combustible grenade. All right, so this is our discard to make a range 1, strike 1, 4 damage, and burn 4 attack. So this is really good. This is going to help us if we get a lot of minions swarming us on this side. Then for Vakram's last cube action, we are going to go ahead and use our agility cube to perform dash, which is going to let us make a move 3, but we only want to move 1 space right here. And then it's going to let us recall a action cube, so we'll get that range cube back into our available pool. And the reason we want to go to this spot here is because we want to make sure the Shadow Vampire stays engaged with us, because right now we do have the most health, and it is going to activate after us. So that'll ensure that it stays right here and goes after us. And then also, we are blocking the way for the Abomination to move forward and get its big strike attack in, because it cannot move through solid objects, because it has to move entire areas at a time. So it can't move through the cannon, because that's a solid object, and it can't move through us, because we are also a solid object. So I've locked these two enemies right here for this turn. Then next up, we have the Shadow Vampires. So we are going to start with this pink one right here, engaged with Vakram. So the Shadow Vampire is attacking for 6, and it has Drain Health 1. It won't be able to heal any, but it can still take the extra health away from us. So Vakram is going to use a melee cube to protect, which will prevent 3, and we do not need to cover the target because we are the target. So that will be 3 total from the Shadow Vampire, taking us down to 9, and then Drain Health will trigger, taking 1 more health from us, putting us at 8. Then we'll activate our green Shadow Vampire in the back of the Corrupted Vessel here, and it's going to move 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Next up, we have Andreas, and he is going to be taking a similar strategy as Vakram, except with the Shadow Knight over here. So we're going to move 3. And we're going to face this Gorgoness Witch. Our first action cube is going to be on our defensive strike. This is a weapon attack, and it will self shield 2, and we get plus 3 to hit. So we need to roll a 4 or higher to deal 3 damage. And a 10 will do it. So 3 damage to the Gorgoness Witch will take it down to 9. Then we are going to spend a range cube for our Dazzling Bolt. And now this is a magic attack, so we don't have to roll, and it will deal 1 damage and stun the Gorgoness Witch. Now the Shadow Knight will take its turn, and Andreas is tied with Nyx for the highest health, both at 10, but the Shadow Knight cannot, again, move past where Andreas is, because there is a cannon in the square with the Gorgoness Witch, and there is us in the square ahead of him. So he's going to stay where he is and attack Andreas. When he first activates, he's going to gain the shield 2, and then Andreas will be attacked for 5 with knockdown as collateral damage. With 2 shield, that means Andreas is now taking 3, and he is going to use his agility cube on his exquisite male to prevent 3. And with that, Andreas will take 0, so he does not get knocked down. And we move to Vorn's turn. Vorn has a movement of 4 and a cleave attack, so he'll actually be able to move 1, 2, 3, 4, squeezing between that that cannon and the Shadow Vampire to be able to get his cleave attack off on both the Abomination and the Shadow Vampire, so they're both going to take 3 damage. That puts the Abomination at 10 health and the Shadow Vampire at 13. Next is Katharina's turn, and we are going to try our best to take out this Abomination, so we're going to use our 3 free movement to get within range 1. And the first cube action we're going to take is our ranged action, the Black Plague weapon attack. We get plus 0 to hit, and the next magic or weapon attack made against the target this turn gains plus 4 damage. So we just need a 7 or higher to hit with our staff. And a 19 will hit. So that will be 3 damage to the Abomination, taking it down to 7. Then Katharina is going to go ahead and use her other range cube on her Reality Revision weapon attack. Really, we don't care about the Telekinesis 3 because large monsters are immune to telekinesis, but it gives us plus 3 to hit. So on a 4 or higher, we will deal a total of 7 damage, which will take out the Abomination. And a 10 will be enough to do it. That's going to do 7 damage, and we take out the Abomination, and that is going to be a huge monkey off of our back. And now that Katharina has taken care of the abomination, it is now the Gorgoness Witch's turn. Let's take a look at their cards real quick. They've got immunities to knockdown. They are ranged attackers with 12 health. They have 3 movement and 4 attack. At the start of the turn, they have the Mending 1 ability, so any other character, so any other of their allies within range 1 will then be able to be healed by 1. But luckily for us, that's not going to happen this turn because the brown Gorgoness Witch is not by any allies, and this one is stunned. So then whenever they attack, they also attack in strike 1, so they will be attacking full blue squares. And they do poison 1 and spread. So we start with the brown Gorgoness Witch in the back, and it's going to move 2 spaces forward. And now that it's adjacent to the placeholder spot, it's going to be able to use its attack to do a rope swing. And it's going to do that in order to get the closest it can. So that's going to be to Andreas. So it's just going to swing straight over. That puts it, within range for an attack on Andreas or Nyx. They're both at 10, so we can tie it up. And I think we'll leave the Gorgoness Witch right there. And then the orange Gorgoness Witch will activate, but it is stunned. So we're just going to remove that stun token and continue on. And next up is Elros, and I think we have enough people over here dealing with this Shadow Vampire, so we're going to move forward this way with Elros. 1, 2, 3. Has a movement of 3, can attack for 1 and deal poison 2, and we will do that to the brown Gorgoness Witch. So it's going to go down to 11 health and gain poison 2. Now Nyx is going to start by moving 3 adjacent to this chest here, and we will go ahead and use our minor action to search the chest. And okay, so Nyx is going to be slowed. Then for her first cube action, she is going to go ahead and use Concoction Shot. So this is a ranged weapon attack, and we're going to be aiming it at the Shadow Knight. We get +3 to hit, and on a hit, we get Bleed 1, Burn 1, Poison 1, and Slow inflicted on the Shadow Knight. We need to roll a 5 or higher to hit with +3. And a 13 will hit. So 4 damage, that means 2 shield will go off of the Shadow Knight, and will deal 2 damage, taking it to 18. And then the Shadow Knight will gain all 4 of those conditions. Then we're going to follow that up with another ranged cube action, and we're going to use our Sucker Punch. This will also go towards the Shadow Knight, and we get a +2 to hit on this, and then we will self Curse 1 and Stealth. So we need to roll a 6 or higher. And unfortunately a 2 is going to miss, but we still get the Curse Cube and go into Stealth. Also forgot to show you all that Nyx gained a Scroll of Protection from that chest. Then the Walking Horror is going to activate. It has a movement of 3. So it will just move 1, 2, 3. And now with the Abomination gone and no foul shooters on board yet, we're going to go to the Naval Raid. And we start that by moving each of the vessels forward 1 space. Then we will manifest a rune. And we drew a gray rune. So now we are going to summon a raid party of Tide Hunters next to our gray cannon. Okay, so I found the culprit that was causing some confusion here. Here is the Naval Battle rune card as opposed to the Naval Raid Special Mechanic over there. So the Naval Raid Special Mechanic does go on top of the initiative track there, while this will go on the bottom. So that should have happened earlier in the initiative track when we got done with that top side there. So I'll go ahead and move that back in a second, and we will do that correctly for future rounds, but just know that we should have spawned this raid right here earlier in the round. But now we are resolving this. So I'll finish resolving the Naval Raid, and then we'll get to this Naval Battle rune card. Alright, we've got our 2 Tide Collars spawned next to the matching rune. Alright, so we now have our Tide Collars spawned next to our cannon with the matching rune color. And now we are at the end for our Naval Battle rune card. We start on side A, of course, and first we advance the boats, which we already did. Then we will draw a rune. Then spawn 1 foul shooter scenario monster on top of the spawning token that matches the color of the drawn rune, and then we'll flip this card over. And we've drawn. Okay, so a red token. This means we get our first foul shooter spawning at the red spawn point. Alright, so for Vakram's turn, I've got a plan. We're going to start by spending 1 melee cube on our weapon attack Staggering Strike that gives us +0 to hit and stun. So we need to roll a 9 or higher to hit the Shadow Vampire. And a 13 will hit. That does 7 damage and stun. Now that we don't have to worry about that for the turn, we are going to move 3. And then we are going to expend our range cube to move another 3 spaces. And now for our minor action, we are going to use our combustible grenade here. So we're going to discard it, and at rage 1, we're going to get to strike 1 and deal 4 damage and burn 4 to these 3 enemies. That puts the brown Gorgoness Witch at 7 HP remaining with 4 burn and 2 poison. The orange Gorgoness Witch is at 4 health with 4 burn, so they will die whenever they activate. And then the neon Tidecaller there is now at 2 HP with 4 burn, so that's going to effectively be able to take out 2 of those enemies for us. So really good that we were able to get that stun off, so we didn't have to worry about that enemy and could come over here to get that. So now the Tidehunters get to activate, and if we take a look at their card here, we can see that they have the Slayer and Skullcracker traits. So Slayer means that for its target, it is going to go after our injured NPCs, cohorts, and followers, so like our Vorn and our Elros. And it also has Skullcracker, which means that its attack will pierce any sturdiness value. So they can basically, no matter what their damage is, as long as they hit one of our followers, they will be defeated. So we can still use our prevents on that and things of that nature, but if they get an attack off on one of our followers, it will kill them. So this White Tidehunter has a move 5 and will be able to scoot through its allies here to get over to Elros. And it's now making an attack of 3, but we will use Andreas's Wisdom Cube to divert, which will prevent that 3 damage and therefore save Elros. Now the Neon Tidehunter will activate, but it has 2 HP and 4 burn, so it will burn away. Next up, we have the Shadow Vampires activating. So the pink Shadow Vampire here is stunned, so we will just remove that stun token. And then our green Shadow Vampire is going to advance, so it's going to move. So it'll move 1, 2, 3. Well, I guess I could just stop here at 2, and then it will use its attack to rope swing, and all of these options over here are blocked, so the closest it can get to us is right here. For Andreas' turn, we're going to start by using our range cube for Blessing of the Sun to heal 3 and shield 2 to Vakram. Healing 3 is going to put him at 11 HP. Then we will go ahead and spend 1 point of movement to move right here. And we will use our melee cube for a baton pass. That's going to allow us to switch spots with Vakram. And then give Vakram an additional +3 to hit for a melee attack. And then, of course, another +3 from his passive for Hero Backer. So that's a total of +6 from Andreas, meaning we only need a 3 or higher to hit for Vakram. So a 3 or higher is going to deal 7 damage and one-shot this Tidehunter if we get it. And a 17 will certainly do it, so that Tidehunter is gone. Then we will perform our Unwilling Recall and put our Curse Cube on our Agility skill Rearrange. Now our Shadow Knight will activate, and at the start of its activation, it's going to take the bleed, burn, and poison damage, taking it down to 15. Then the Shadow Knight is also going to gain shield 2. And the Shadow Knight is going to be unable to make an attack this turn because Nyx is in stealth and unable to be targeted. And there's nowhere for the Shadow Knight to move, so it's not even going to be able to shed its slow this round. So that will be it for the Shadow Knight, and then we'll go to our Naval Raid special mechanic. We've got it in the right order this time, so this is the correct time that it would activate. So for Naval Raid, we're going to manifest a rune. And we have orange this time. So on the B side, we are going to summon a raid party of Boatswains, which are these Executioner minions. And they're going to spawn on the orange spawn point. Sorry, they technically spawn adjacent. So right here and right here. Then we will flip that back over to side A and continue on to Vorn. Vorn will activate, and we will just maneuver a little bit here to get on the other side, but Vorn is still happy to put 3 more damage towards this Shadow Vampire, putting it at 3 HP remaining. Now for Katharina's turn, we're going to start by moving 3 spaces. We will then spend an Agility Cube to be able to move another 3 spaces. And we will use our last cube action for our Soul Link. It's going to use our Wisdom Cube. It is a magic attack, so it's going to deal 2 damage without a roll, and then we can move a condition stack from a target hero to a target enemy. So we will do 2 damage to the brown Gorgoness Witch, putting it at 5 remaining health, so whenever it activates on its turn next, it will die because it has the 4 burn and 2 poison. And then we will go ahead and remove the slow condition from Nyx and place that on that Gorgoness Witch. That'll be it for Katharina. Now both of the Gorgoness Witches are going to die because both of them have more condition damage that they're taking at the start of their activation than they do have health. Now Elros is going to activate, and he's going to move 3. And we're going to attack the green Shadow Vampire for 1 damage and poison 2. Now Nyx will activate, and we'll start by moving one space here to be adjacent to the Shadow Knight, and we will spend a melee cube in order to make a weapon attack with Pounce. We get +3 to hit, so we are going to hit on a 5 or higher. And it's actually going to be 3 or higher thanks to the +2 we are getting from our flank ability that we gained from taking the Trickery class ability. Okay, and a 4 does just barely hit, but it hits. So since we are in stealth, we are going to lose stealth and then double our damage dealt. So that is going to be 8 going towards the Shadow Knight. The Shadow Knight has 2 shield, so that will take it down to 6 incoming damage and take the Shadow Knight down to 9 HP. Unfortunately, the target is no longer fine. That is less than half of its health, so it's not going to also gain the bleed 4, but still a big hit. Then with Nyx's last cube action, we're going to go ahead and use another melee cube for our weapon attack, Jack of All Blades. We get +3 to hit from that. Again, another +2 from flank, so a total of +5 to hit. We need to roll a 3 or higher. This attack also has the keen trait, so it will crit on a 16 or higher. And if the target is adjacent to a solid object, which it is, it's also adjacent to Elros, we will intimidate 2. And a 13 will hit. So that's going to be another 4 damage to the Shadow Knight, taking it down to 5, and then it gets Intimidate 2. Next up is the Walking Horror, and it is just going to move over here in order to rope swing and become adjacent to Andreas and Katharina. Now our Foul Shooter will activate. And so all Foul Shooters are good for in this battle is moving towards these Dread Cannons and activating them. So this Foul Shooter is going to move 2 spaces. It is now adjacent to the Dread Cannon and will use its attack action to fire it. So the Pristine Swan has been attacked for the first time by this Dread Cannon. That means we are going to flip the top card of the Pristine Swan's HP deck and resolve that card. And we've drawn Clear Sight. First, place a special event token on top of the Foul Shooter scenario monster card on the initiative track. As long as that token is there, consider the special rule Hindering Sight suspended. When the initiative marker reaches that card again in the next round, remove the token, and the special rule becomes functional again. Okay, so for an entire round starting now, we will be able to use our agility and wisdom or other range cubes at a farther range than just the one range limitation we've been using since the start of this with all of the fog. So we've gotten out of the fog for just a round, but that won't last for long. And now we will end this round on the rune card. So we are first going to advance the ships. Then we are going to draw 2 runes, and for each matching color, we are going to flip that same cannon on the Pristine Swan to its ready side. So whatever colors we draw, we will flip the matching cannons over, and if we draw a blue rune, then we get to choose which cannon. And we drew a gray and red. So both of these cannons here will flip over to their ready side. All right, our cannons are flipped over and ready to be fired, so we can progress towards our win condition. We need to get these cannons fired off 6 times. So whenever we fire it, we're going to flip it back over to its unready side and then kind of have to wait for that B side to come back and load some more cannons up. So we're hopefully going to be able to do that process just 3 times and fire both of our cannons each time and get the win. But for now, it is back up to Vakram's turn. For Vakram's turn, we're going to start by moving 2. Over here to the Shadow Vampire. We are going to spend our melee cube to make a weapon attack Relentless. We're going to get +3 to hit from this. It is also keen, and we deal +3 damage. So we need to roll a 6 or higher to hit. And another 13 will do it, so that's going to deal 7 damage, taking the Shadow Vampire down to 8. And because we can fire the cannons while we're engaged, we're going to use our Wisdom Cube to fire this magic cannon. So we will flip it over to show it's been used. And then, like how we drew the HP card for the Pristine Swan, we will draw our first Corrupted Vessel HP card. We drew Reinforcements. First, manifest a rune. Then summon a Foul Shooter on top of the spawning token that matches the color of the revealed rune. Okay, that is not great. We want to start getting a grip on these Foul Shooters before we start to get too many of them, because they can fire their cannons a lot easier than we can. We have to wait for them to get loaded. They can just walk up and fire it as their attack action. So we need to start getting some of our heroes over to the other side and start dealing with these Foul Shooters. And we manifested a orange. And that is all for Vakram's turn. So now the Shadow Vampire is going to activate. And so the Shadow Vampire is targeting Vakram, but it's not going to be able to make it there. So it is going to jump over towards Andreas. And make an attack for 6. And Andreas is going to go ahead and use a agility cube on his exquisite male. And we'll also go ahead and gain another curse cube to give us a +2 bonus to that prevent. So that's a total of prevent 5. We still have 1 damage incoming. And with Katharina, we are going to use our melee cube to use our powerless reaction, which is a wisdom skill, but because of the researcher feat we took for the arcane tree, we can use any color cube for our wisdom skills. So that's going to prevent the last 2. It would also let us avoid any collateral damage, but we prevented it all, so we do not take any collateral damage, and Andreas takes no damage from that attack. And now the Green Shadow Vampire is attacking Vakram for 6. He's got 2 shield, so that will be removed, and 4 damage is incoming. And then Vakram will go ahead and use his Wisdom Cube for his Endure to prevent 3 and end up only taking 1. So that'll take Vakram down to 10 HP. And I didn't mention it last time, but we are at 2 Fury with Vakram now. For each time he takes damage, he gains 1 Fury. And then, because the Shadow Vampire has Drain Health 1, Vakram will go ahead and take 1 more HP loss from that, going down to 9, and the Shadow Vampire will go back up to 9 health. I did forget to do the poison, so we'll go ahead and do the 2 poison and take the Green Shadow Vampire down to 7. Now for Andreas' turn, we're going to start by moving 2 towards the edge of the boat here, and we will spend a range cube in order to swing over. We still have 1 cube action remaining, but let's go ahead and use a minor action to see what this interaction token is. The Princess of Loreland. As soon as you board the enemy ship, you discover the reason for the commotion you saw before. An elf is fighting alone against the whole monster crew. There is fire, blood, and smoke everywhere, but she doesn't give an inch to the creatures. With her staff firmly in her hand and her golden hair dancing in the wind, she looks like an image from a book. We've got a lot of interesting options. Ask her to help you seize the corrupted vessel. Ask her to make the ships collide. That sounds a little dangerous. I don't want to mess up the Pristine Swan. Ask her to help you protect the Pristine Swan. That sounds pretty good. I feel like right now we have the Pristine Swan at least a little bit under control. We want to start getting rid of these foul shooters, so we are going to ask her to help us seize control of the corrupted vessel. The elf looks at you with a quirky smile. I must tell you that I was having a bit of fun in this mayhem, unleashing my fury on these creatures, but I guess it is about time to finish this. All right, you have my assistance. Now step aside or you'll get hurt, she says, brandishing her staff and drawing magical energy into her hand. It seems you got more than you expected. Now we replace this interaction token with the follower, Lorelei the Mage, recruiting her into your party. She is obstinate now. Then, if this interaction token had only 1 charge or there are no small monsters aboard the corrupted vessel, nothing special happens and your interaction is resolved. Otherwise, if the interaction token still had 2 charges and there are small monsters aboard the corrupted vessel, only if both criteria are fulfilled, which they are, we were at 2, and there are small monsters, we carry on with the resolution below. The mage crosses her arms in front of her body and words you've never heard before fill the air in a cold and beautiful voice. Before you can ask or say anything, she disappears just as lightning strikes the corrupted vessel. Looking to the source of the sound, you see the elf standing there while static electricity crackles around the place where one of the creatures was just moments before. Now swap Lorelei with a small monster aboard the corrupted vessel and remove it from the board. Also, flip Lorelei's follower card. She is exhausted now. Finally, you may continue to play the adventure. Alright, so Lorelei is now in our party. We have swapped her with the foul shooter that was right there and gotten rid of it. You can kind of see up at the top there, after the walking horror, she is going to activate. She has a 4 movement, 2 attack now that she is on her exhausted side, but she also deals slow. So that's going to be useful for making sure that these foul shooters can't get to the dread cannons in time. But now Andreas still has 1 more cube action available, and we're going to go ahead and have him use his range cube to battle focus, cleansing 1 of the curse cubes of the 2 that he has, and giving him another focus, putting him at 3. Now the boatswain will have their first activation. Starting with the white boatswain, they have a movement of 4. And they can't get into position for their cleave 2, so he is just going to attack for 4 to Andreas, and we have the collateral of knockdown. I think Andreas is okay with being knocked down right there. It is a good position to be in. He'll still be able to attack whenever other enemies come in closer. So I think we are just going to use our Wisdom Cube to divert and prevent 3 of that. So Andreas will only take 1, going down to 9, and become knocked down. Now the next boatswain activates, moves 4, 1, 2, well only needs to move 3, and is once again going to attack Andreas for 4. And we will use 1 of our melee cubes to endure from our Warden roll. which is going to prevent 3. So again, we only take 1 going down to 8 HP, and knockdown is a redundant condition, so we can't gain that twice. And that will be all for the Boatswain, so now we go to the Shadow Knight. The Shadow Knight will take 1 damage from poison, going to 4 HP, and then it will gain 2 shield. The Shadow Knight has Strike 2, so it's going to target both Vakram and Nyx. So first, 5 damage coming into Nyx. She is going to use her Agility Cube for Speed and Justice. So we're going to roll the d20 and prevent half of the number rounded down, so a 10 or higher will prevent all of the damage. Okay, so half of 5 rounded down is 2, so that only prevents 2. We still have 3 that we would need to prevent, which I don't think is going to happen. So Nyx is going to take 3 damage, going down to 7 and become knocked down. Okay, actually, let me walk that back just a second. We will put Nyx back up to 10. She has prevented 2, but we don't need to do that yet. First, with Vakram, let's use a melee cube for Protect. We are adjacent, so we can use our melee cube to prevent 3 and then cover the target. So now that attack on Nyx is coming to Vakram, and I might be playing this wrong. It's a little confusing, but I think it's really cool, so I'm going to do it anyways. So with 2 incoming damage still remaining, we are going to use our Agility Cube on our leather armor to tumble. So that's going to prevent 2. So we now are not taking any more damage from that attack, and we get to move 2 spaces. And if we move 2 back here, we are no longer in strike zone for the attack. So that second attack against Vakram now will not trigger. If anyone knows whether or not that is right or wrong, please explain that to me in the comments. I like what I did though, so we're going to keep it. We're back to our naval raid, side A this time, so we will be manifesting a rune to see where we're going to summon some Tide Hunters. And they're going to spawn on, okay, so blue means we get to choose. And we want to keep them away from our followers as much as we can. So let's start by putting them at the gray cannon. And now it is Vorn's turn, and he's going to move 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces perfectly right in here for his cleave attack against the Walking Horror and the Shadow Vampire. The Shadow Vampire is at 3, so that attack will defeat the Shadow Vampire, and the Walking Horror's health is going to go down to 9. Now it's Katharina's turn, and we've got a really nice setup here. Because we have lost the Hindered Sight special mechanic for this round, with Katharina's last Wisdom Cube, we're going to use Heroic Absorption, which is our magical attack. We get to choose. We can do 2 damage and stun, or heal 4 and cleanse 1. We're going to choose to do 2 damage and stun to the Foul Shooter on the orange spawn point, so it's not going to be able to use its attack action to use the Dread Cannon this turn. It'll still be able to move up to it, but because it's stunned, it loses its attack action, which is what it needs to activate the cannon. So the brown Foul Shooter is going to go to 6 health and gain a stun, and then we'll perform an Unwilling Recall with Katharina. Next, we'll use Katharina to move back 1 space here. So we can use our ranged weapon attack, Reality Revision. We're going to get +3 to hit, so we'll hit on a 4 or higher, and if we hit the Walking Horror, we get to perform Telekinesis 3. And we can walk this Walking Horror, pun intended, off the side of the boat, which will automatically defeat it. So if we hit, we will defeat the Walking Horror. We need a 4 or higher. And a 12 will hit, so it will deal 3 damage, and then Telekinesis 3, we will just send it over the edge there and defeat it. And that will be it for Katharina's turn. Now Elros is up, and we're going to use him to move over to this magic cannon and use his attack action to activate it. So we will draw another Corrupted Vessel HP card. This time we drew Critical Shot. First, choose one of the Corrupted Vessel's map tiles. Then each hero on top of that map tile must make an agility skill challenge of difficulty 11. Each agility cube they have gives them a bonus of +2 to their roll. If they succeed, they receive an inspiration token. Otherwise, they suffer knockdown. Pets, followers, and monsters there suffer this condition without defending themselves. Well, I'm going to be honest, I don't think that is really useful for me to knock down the Boatswain. They're already adjacent to Andreas, and Andreas is already knocked down, so that's not going to matter too much. I don't care if the Foul Shooter gets knocked down because it's already stunned, so it's not going to be able to activate the Dread Cannon, and I want it to get closer so I can attack it. So yeah, I think I'm just going to choose one of the tiles that nobody's on, and therefore we'll just resolve that without incident. That is another HP down though. We only have to fire our cannons 4 more times to defeat the Corrupted Vessel. Now with Nyx's turn, we're going to start by using our Wisdom Cube for Down the Masses. This is our spell attack that lets us split up 3 damage however we would like. We're going to start by dealing 2 damage to the Shadow Knight, which will get rid of its armor, and then we are going to ping the green Shadow Vampire for 1, taking it down to 6. Nyx will then perform an Unwilling Recall. Then Nyx will move 1 space in between all of these enemies right here. And we will start by using a Jack of all blades against the Shadow Knight. We deal 4 damage, we get +3 to hit, we have Keen. Intimidate isn't going to matter, because if we hit, we are going to kill the Shadow Knight at 4 HP. We're only getting the +3 because the Shadow Knight is not adjacent to another ally, so we need a 5 or higher. Okay, and a 6 will do it, so that defeats the Shadow Knight. Then, as our minor action, we are going to spend our 2 focus for Blood Toll, which is going to let us take an additional cube action this turn. And with that, we will turn around to face this Shadow Vampire, and we will spend another melee cube for our Pounce. This is also going to give us +3 to hit, so we need a 5 or higher to deal 4 damage to the Shadow Vampire. And a 12 will hit for 4. That takes it down to 2 HP, and the Shadow Vampire has poison too, so when it activates, it will die. After that is Lorelei, and she's going to move 4. Well, we'll just move 3. She doesn't roll for her attack, so being at disadvantage doesn't matter. We are going to do 2 damage and slow to the Neon Boatswain. That will take it down to 7 HP. And now we are back to the Foul Shooters. So our Hindered Sight is no longer activated. And the Foul Shooter will activate. It will move 3, but remember it is stunned, so it is just going to move up to the Dread Cannon, but not be able to fire it this turn, and we will remove the stun token. And we're back to the end of the round with the Naval Battle rune card, so we are going to advance the ships. Then we will draw a rune and spawn another Foul Shooter at the matching spawn point color. And we drew blue, so we get to choose. And I think I'm going to choose the green spawn point. That's close to both Lorelei and Andreas, so hopefully they'll be able to help prevent, especially Lorelei being able to give the Foul Shooters the slow condition. And with that final Foul Shooter spawning, I think we're going to end this first video here. This is Solo Party. My name is Kane. I will see you all next time. Thanks for watching.